Our next speaker is Ryan Ehrfurth. Ryan is a colleague of mine from the State of Arizona Research Library. He is our map librarian as well as the manager of the Arizona Memory Project. Ryan will be speaking on finding family, genealogy in the Arizona Memory Project. So I'm going to turn that over to Ryan now.
Hello, hopefully people can hear me. Someone give me a thumbs up. They can hear me okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I just want to make sure before I start talking. All right. Awesome. All right. Let me do a quick share screen and we can get going. All right. Hopefully everyone should be able to see the finding family slides. Okay, awesome. Here we go. Yes, as Mariah said, my name is Ryan Ehrfurth. I manage the Arizona Memory Project. I've been doing that for about 10 years. And so this presentation is going to go over the genealogical resources in the Arizona Memory Project. So we call it AMP for short. AMP isn't entirely genealogy focused. It's kind of much broader about Arizona history, but there are genealogy related items in the memory project, and so that'll be the focus of this session today. So if you don't know, the Arizona Memory Project, it's a resource of the State of Arizona Research Library. It's free, publicly accessible, and it's available for everyone, and it focuses, like I mentioned, on information related to the history, government, and statecraft of Arizona. It's also, not only do we contribute our own content from the State of Arizona Research Library, but we have about 107 different institutions, museums, historical societies throughout Arizona that contribute some of their own collections to help us increase the available information on the Memory Project platform. Okay, for accessing the Arizona Memory Project, I mentioned it's online. All you need is internet access. It is free for all users. There are no paywalls, there's no subscriptions, and there's no ads. So it's not like some other sites where you might need to put in some login credentials or you might need to subscribe to it to access it. The Memory Project doesn't require any of that. As long as you have access to the internet, you'll be able to access the site. There is an option, and I'll talk about this at the end. There is an option to create a member account that lets you bookmark some of your items and sort of create your own little custom collections. It's not required. There's no, creating a member account doesn't unlock additional material. It just gives you a few extra tools to manage the materials that you do find. So I'll mention that later. But yeah, the main access point is just the main URL. Previous slide there. So as long as you get on the internet, you can get to the Memory Project. Where does AMP content come from? So I mentioned before, we create our own collections as the State of Arizona Research Library, but we also have institutional partners. That includes libraries, archives, museums, historical societies, other government agencies, both state and federal, and local, actually, nonprofits, charities, businesses, individuals. So we don't really as long as an institution has information related to the history of Arizona, that's the main thing. But these are just sort of the kinds of partners that have content on the Memory Project. And here you can see just a quick map of AMP contributing institutions. You can see they're kind of literally all over the map. So this is a screenshot from the site. There's a place on the site where you can actually go, and if you want to drill down and click into some of these, you can see where they're at. But just to give you an idea of they're coming from all over the state. And just a quick snapshot of the history and growth of AMP. It launched in 2006 with 11 partner institutions and 17 collections. And you can see that over the years, that growth has steadily risen over time, and to the point where we now have 609 collections and 117 partner institutions, and we're always adding more stuff. So yeah, just give you an idea of kind of, where AMP came from and where it's headed. Okay, AMP content. So before I get into the specific genealogical stuff, I wanted to give you sort of an idea of how content is organized on the site, because there's a lot of different types of information, types of item formats. And so I wanted to give you an idea of kind of how things are organized and structured on the site. So there's 28 different item formats, and a format is just a thing like a book, a newspaper, a city directory, a map, a document, things like that. So 13 of those item formats are single items. So a book will be, the digital file will be the scan of a single book or a scan of a newspaper issue. So there's 13 of those. There's 12 information item formats. So these are different than individual items. These are hubs where we can link all the related individual items to them. So a hub might be called the Grand Canyon, and the items that are linked to it would be maps, photos, books, any other items that are related to the Grand Canyon. So that way, if you do a search for Grand Canyon and you get, 10,000 search results, we've kind of done some of the work of linking those things so you can go to a single landing page for the Grand Canyon, a hub, and then all those related items will be linked to it. So you don't have to kind of go searching across the entire site. And then we also have story item formats. These are going to be less relevant for genealogy. But I just want to know that those exist. So when you're in the site and you're looking around, you're asking, what is that? Just so you have an idea. These are formats that are designed to tell more of a structured story. And I'll show you what, each of these look like. So single item formats, these are all the different ones that are in the site. So, audio, books, maps, newspapers, documents, objects, periodicals, handwritten documents, yearbooks, videos, things like that. And then the information item formats, or the hubs, these will be things like agency, so a state agency, a government agency, a collection. Those are among the 609 that I mentioned earlier. Contributors, a partner. Sometimes if there's a famous person that has enough content in AMP, we'll create a person page for them. Place page would be for the Grand Canyon. An event might be Arizona statehood, things like that. So again, these act as hubs where other items are linked to them. And then these are the story item formats. We have exhibitions, a narrative, and a timeline. So I mentioned, these are probably going to be, you're probably not going to find genealogical things related to these because these are sort of like story things that we kind of build out using existing tools and items in the memory project. But as you're going through the site and you see, a narrative or a timeline, just wanted you to know that that's what they are. Okay, AMP genealogy content. So the good stuff. So we created a topic or a hub page for genealogy related content. Again, you'll get these slides, but that is the link to it. And one thing about links, if you're making notes for yourself, everything before that number at the end is going to be the same. Everything is azmemory.azlibrary.gov, /notes/view. You can leave all of that the same. The thing that's going to take you to different pages is that final number after the last slash. So if you're taking notes, you only need to really write down that last number. Everything else in the URL can stay the same. So yeah, we know that genealogy is a popular topic, for a lot of people that use the memory project. So we just created a genealogy page. Now, I can't promise that everything possible in the site was going to be hubbed to this page because there's so much stuff. But some of the big collections, some of the obvious items that are related to genealogy are going to be found on that genealogy page. So that's a good place to start if you just kind of want to get a lay of the land and say, like, okay, what kinds of genealogy items are on AMP? We also have a families topic hub page. So again, just to point out, so the 309234, actually that link is drawn. But if you go and find, if you type in families and look for the topic format, you'll find it. But yeah, so not only do we have one related for genealogy broadly, but also one for families specifically. The types of items that are in this hub tend to be things like scrapbooks, collections that are related to specific families in Arizona. So yeah, so we do have one for families as well as a topic. And then I will get into individual items. So we have newspapers. So we have about over 82,000 newspaper issues spread across 305 collections. And we created a hub page for Arizona historical digital newspapers. That's the vast majority of newspapers on the site. Some of our institutional partners might have one-offs of newspapers that are kind of included in their collection. But the main collection for that is going to be that hub page for historical digital newspapers. That's what those 305 collections are representing. All right, so we also have something called amplifier research sessions. So those are sessions that we've done over the past couple of years where we kind of do more of a deep dive into how to use specific items or research tips and tricks on the site. So we recorded all those. We have slide decks for those. So if you're interested in learning more about how to use newspapers specifically within the Arizona Memory Project, you can view the recording in the slide deck for those newspapers for that relevant Amplify Your Research session. It'll be called something like Amplify Your Research Session Newspapers, something like that. And then, yeah, so you can click those links to get the recording if you want to watch it, and then the slide deck if you just want to hit the slides and kind of follow along on the site if you'd like to do it that way. City directories. We've got about 400 city directories. We created a hub page for that as well, so you don't have to go, kind of hunting around for them and, trying to, do a search result and trying to remember where everything is. We created a hub page, a main page for all the city directories, so that's a really good starting point for those. We have an Amplify Your Research session for the city directories as well. And you can click those links. Yearbooks, we have 734 yearbooks at the moment. Created a hub page for those. So those are really good. If you know where a family member, attended high school or grade school, something like that, those are really good. Or if you know someone who was a teacher at one of those schools, something like that. So those are really good for finding specific people, just because of the sort of nature of what yearbooks are. And, we've had patrons ask, like, oh, I'm looking for, a family member, they went to the school, and then they find out that, maybe they were like part of like, the school's chess club or something, and they didn't know that, right? So those are really good for finding sort of like contextual information about, kind of like, their school days, essentially. We also have brand books. If you're not familiar with a brand book, it's gone under different names, but essentially the Arizona Department of Agriculture has kept basically logs of brands. So actual symbols that are sort of, branded into cattle to sort of, claim ownership of them and, tell them apart from other ranches. We have those brand books, I think going back to the late 1800s. And so those are a little trickier to sort of read because you can't do a search for a symbol. But we do have an Amplify Your Research session for the branded books, a recording for those that kind of explains kind of how to manually search within a branded book, because you're looking for symbols. You can do searches for names if you know the name of a family member that you're looking for. But sometimes, we've had patrons ask, it's like, I can't remember, I don't know, exactly who owned the ranch. My family did at one point, but, I'm trying to figure out who owned the ranch, or who had this symbol at a certain time. And all they have is the symbol because they're not sure what the name of the person was, and then there's a way that you can kind of go in these brand books and find the symbol. And then from there, you can find a name and then use that name to do searches, right? So sometimes you have to find, a piece of information first, and then you can use that to sort of, go explore, other avenues. We've got 44 brand books. Brands are also brand books specifically. You can see from the screenshot, these are books specifically compiled of different brands. We also have brands. Sometimes they just be sort of dropped into newspaper issues. They're just, included almost like an article in a newspaper. Wherever we found those, we would link that newspaper page to the brand books hub page, which is there. So when you go to that hub page for brand books, you'll see newspapers there as well. That's because those newspapers where we found brands, we linked to it. So that way, because again, you can't search a symbol, so it'd be very difficult to find those otherwise. So wherever we stumbled into them, we made sure that we linked them to the brand book page. All right, inventory of historic Arizona cemeteries. This one's kind of like a call out as a specific collection versus a hub of things. But this was contributed by the Arizona State Historic Preservation Office. It is exactly what it sounds like. There are historic cemeteries throughout Arizona, and I think there's about 700 or so in this collection. So, a lot of times, patrons will want to know, where a family member was buried, or they want to just kind of know more about, the cemetery itself. Where it is, who owns it, things like that. So clicking into that collection, you'll be able to see, they all kind of look like this screenshot. They're just a few pages of each inventory item has a document like this that pretty much looks the same. That just has, some basic, property identification information, things like that. So I don't know that many of these have sort of like a list of people who are buried at those cemeteries. Usually a site like Find a Grave or something like that tends to be better about that kind of information, because that'll also have, probably a photograph of someone's headstone, things like that. This isn't really that, but it does tell you information about sort of the cemetery itself, and that may be useful for your research. Okay, I'm going to go over a few research tools that you can use to help you use the memory project. If you haven't used it before, it can be overwhelming. There's a good 290,000 items. There's a bunch of different item types. I mentioned there's 28 item types. It's easy to get overwhelmed. So we put together some research tools that will help you use the site, sort of understand how it works. So first of all, we have a AMP research guide. That's the link there. So basically, it details how to use AMP for research, and how it also includes information about how local institutions can contribute. You might know someone, or you're part of an institution that has Arizona genealogical content that you're interested, or someone is interested in digitizing, putting online somewhere. So there's information about that as well. But the main point of it is to help users understand how to use AMP as a guide. So it'll be things like how to search, how to do an advanced search. Once you get to an item, there's all sorts of tools you can do. You can sort of, fit to zoom if the image is too small, things like that. So a lot of just different tools about how to use it. How to use filters, how to use facets. Basically, if you get 10,000 search results and you want to narrow it down, how do you do that? Things like that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to sort of apply some of those tools and kind of go through what would look like if you were searching for an ancestor. So this is an example. You could, I'm going to use the name of a specific person, just swap it out with whoever it is that you're looking for. And as I go along, I'll point out a few sort of like, not traps, but, things that can make research trickier or more difficult. Because I'll mention something about during kind of this example of OCR, optical character recognition, where you can search for a name. The OCR is only as good as the quality of the original document, and sometimes OCR is not perfect; it won't catch something. And there's also other sort of things about if somebody's full name. You might have to do 5 or 6 searches with different iterations of that person's full name, because in the original document, maybe their middle name wasn't used, or maybe their middle name was abbreviated. So if it's John W. Smith, you might need to look for John Smith, John William Smith, or things like that. So it can be tricky, right? To kind of but once you have a name, you just kind of have to tinker around with it a little bit to see which how many different ways their name may have been entered in the original document. And that's what those research tips and tools will kind of go through too as well. Just like, here's how to do different kinds of searches depending on what it is that you're looking for. Okay, so I'm going to use Herbert Babbitt as an example. The Babbitt is sort of like a long-standing ranching family in Arizona. So they show up. The Babbitt family shows up in a lot of places, and there's more than one Babbitt family. But I knew, for example, it'd be relatively easy to find, a specific individual. So, okay, we're going to use Herbert Babbitt as an example. So the very first thing you should do is click the search button in the navigation panel. So that's on the, not only is this going to be on the homepage, you can see the azmemory.azlibrary.gov in the screenshot. This panel right here of navigation places, that's going to be on every page on the site. So you don't need to go back to the home page to see this. This little banner of options will be on every single page, regardless of where you are within AMP. So it's easy if you're kind of hit a dead end or something, very easy to just go back and get to the search. But yeah, so there's a dedicated search button over here. So recommended first starting with that. Okay, so if you are searching for a specific person, it's best to use an exact phrase match. Again, this is going to be in the online guide. This is kind of just a, an overview of, screenshots of, what it would look like. But that research guide will tell you exactly how to do an exact phrase match and what all those other buttons do. So for just for example purposes, type in the name in the new search one, and then go over to the right where it says search for. This is going to be you can put limits on where exactly the site is going to search. So exact phrase match ensures that the matches that you get are going to be Herbert Babbitt. Because if you don't do that, you're going to get all the Herberts, all the Babbitts, and some Herbert Babbitts might be in there, but it's going to be loaded in with all the search results that only have Herbert, only have Babbitt. You want to make sure that you're looking for Herbert Babbitt specifically. So it's going to look for that exact string of characters, so that way you know that you're going to get Herbert Babbitt, that name exactly. It's a good way to sort of make sure that the results that you do get are going to be more likely to be relevant for you, because there's a lot more other Herberts that aren't Babbitts and a lot of other Babbitts that aren't Herbert. So for that example, there's 107 search results. Okay, not too bad. Sometimes you'll get 10,000, and that's usually your sign that you need to use a filter or a facet to sort of narrow it down. So, but if you wanted to do it even further, if you're like, okay, there's 107 search results, how do I? That's still a lot to go through. I'm really looking for something a little more specific than that, or I only care about a certain item type. One way that you can filter further is underneath every search result page that you're going to get, you'll see this filter by over here. Underneath that is going to be formats. So when we were talking about earlier about AMP has 28 different formats, audio, books, periodicals, maps, documents. Those are all going to be listed under here. But if you do it after a search result, it's only going to show you the formats that have search results. So there are no maps here. So there are no maps that the site found that have Herbert Babbitt's name in it. So it's only going to show you results with search results. So that helps automatically kind of filter down too. It's not going to show you, maps 0, audio 0, only ones that have search results. And it's, as a side note, this is going to show up alphabetically, not by popularity. So you can see there's 96 newspaper results. But, in some systems that you search in, sometimes they're organized by popularity. But for the memory project, we decided to go alphabetical. So you can see that these search results, there's 107 of them. 4 of them are from city directories. 5 were found in documents. 96 were in newspapers. 2 were in yearbooks. And I should call out too, I'm going to use brand books as an example. Brand book is not its own item type. It's formatted as a document. So it won't say brand. If you're looking for a brand book, don't look for brand book, the words in the format, look for it in documents, because that's how we sort of formatted it. But yeah, like I mentioned, the number next to the item is going to show you how many results there are for that specific item type. Okay, so if you want to search within a specific item type, or you only want to see search results for one type of item, then all you have to do is click on the name of it. So here, for example, you would click on city directory. Previous slide, we saw that there were only 4 search results. So this is a screenshot of after I clicked city directory, and you can see that the results went from 107 to 4. And it's telling you that there's one filter applied, that filter being you only want to see city directories. If you want to jump to documents or newspapers or yearbooks, then you just click on the next one and the search results will automatically update. So if I went and clicked on document, this is then going to change to 5 search results and the filter applied will be different. One thing to note is within a filter format, so under format here, you can't stack. So that means you can't search city directories and documents, but not newspapers and yearbooks. You can't search, 3 of them, but not one of the others. It's one at a time. You can stack. There's other, if you go through the research guide, you'll see there's other sort of filtering and facets tools, like has the following, which would be, does it have OCR? Does it have a tag? If you know the exact name of something you're looking for, starts with would be, you can pick a number or a name. So yeah, those can stack, but within this item format, it's one at a time. So the recommended way of sort of researching this, it would be to go to one item type, do your work on it, find what's relevant, and then just kind of move on to the next one. You can also have multiple tabs open, because whenever you do a search result, you'll get a URL that contains, all the relevant information for that page. You can also just open multiple tabs, and then, you can create 4 tabs, one, and then just click on each one, and then you just kind of work with that. So, so there's a little bit of flexibility in there, and sort of, how you kind of want to, set yourself up while you're searching stuff. But technically, the infrastructure of the site only lets you do sort of one at a time here. And you can see that these are all city directories. So you can see, just from these quick search results, you've got stuff ranging from 1930 to 1968. And sometimes you can get sort of information that you weren't exactly looking for, but kind of helps clue you in. You can see, this is a state business directory, but the other ones are all Flagstaff. So that tells you something, if you're looking for a specific person, maybe you already knew sort of, where the family kind of tended to reside. But sometimes the items themselves will kind of give you information about, like, oh, okay, at least for this person, he was in Flagstaff pretty consistently, or at least the family was. Okay, now I'm going to go through sort of each of the item formats that it kind of went through, and that sort of broad overview, like, oh, genealogy content, we've got newspapers, city directories, yearbooks, brand books, those kinds of things. So I'm going to highlight those, not to say that you can't find genealogy information in the document. For example, we have a lot of state agency annual reports. Sometimes people find out that, they're, a family member worked for ADOT, the Arizona Department of Transportation, right? So you can find genealogy stuff everywhere in the site. But I'm just going to call these out because these are the types of formats that genealogists and family, researchers tend to use the most. So newspapers. So we're on the same search. We're still looking for Herbert Babbitt. I started with a general search with the exact phrase, Herbert Babbitt, and here's some of the individual items that are search results that I was able to find using this. So you can see in the red box highlighted that you can see that you've got Herbert Babbitt in there, along with David R.G. Babbitt, C.J. Babbitt, and then you can see off to the side, wherever it's highlighted, that's where it found Babbitt or Herbert, so it'll highlight it for you. There's a caveat to how newspapers work with exact phrase searches. I'll go over that. But for now, just know that, so go into a newspaper and you'll see that, okay, there's the names highlighted. And I mentioned before, you're likely to find other tangentially related information. So you're looking for Herbert Babbitt, but you can see here that there are other family members that are involved here. So this looks to be a thing based off the screenshot of this. They're all board of directors, so they're all kind of on the same board. So yeah, you can see that the name that you're looking for in relation to other tangential information, and sometimes that other tangential information can give you sort of like a new thread to kind of go searching and exploring as sort of a side quest, Okay, so I do want to point this out for newspapers. There's a known issue where the highlight keywords, so the yellow here that you see where the search, the keywords like Babbitt and Herbert were highlighted. There's a known issue where if you use the exact phrase match search that we went over a few slides ago, the items, the keyword words won't highlight like they do in that screenshot. The workaround to do that, and this is in that research guide, exactly like a step-by-step instruction of how to do this. Do a new search that's not an exact phrase match. So you just do Herbert Babbitt as a brand new search. And then you would use the filters and facets to narrow it down to the search results for the items you do want. So in this case, this is the Coconino Sun, 1923, September 14th. You would do a generic search, and then you would use the filters to say, I only want newspapers. And then there's a date filter where you can put in the date of September 14th, 1923. then that same search result is going to come back. You're going to see the same issue again in the search result. Then when you click on it, then the items, the keywords will highlight. That's how I got this screenshot. So it's a little bit of work. It's, you kind of, it's a little tedious. You kind of have to go back and, start over and kind of, make a note of which issue we were looking at. It's something we've spoken with the vendor about, sort of a known issue. We don't, there's not really a sort of a roadmap for a solution at this point, but I did want to call that out. So if you're doing an exact phrase match and you're following along with the slides, and then you find out like, hey, these, the items, the keywords aren't highlighting, what happened? I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that that's a known issue. Hopefully one day it'll get fixed, but for the moment, just know that that's an issue, but we do have a workaround that works. All right, city directories. And I should say it's only an issue for newspapers. And that has to do with the way that newspapers are kind of formatted. So you don't have to worry about that for any other item type, only newspapers. Okay, so moving on to city directory. So that's another one of the search result item types that we got from our Herbert Babbitt. So you can see here that in the 1930 Arizona State Business Directory, we've got the city of Flagstaff, and Herbert Babbitt is mentioned under that entry. You can see here that in the yearbook Kinlani of 1958, Herbert Babbitt is listed there as well. And I'll point this out too. I mentioned before that sometimes you might get some false positives, or there's other family members that have, similar or different names. So, if you've got, the 1930 Arizona State Business Directory, and here you've got someone, who is in high school in 1958, probably not the same Herbert Babbitt. So sometimes you kind of have to parse that out. You might find Herbert Babbitt, and then you realize, there's more than one, right? So it doesn't say anything here about a senior or a junior or something that would have give you, some extra contextual information. But just notice that, if you've done a lot of genealogy research before, if you've used, online ancestry types of websites, I'm sure you know all about this, trying to figure out, okay, well, their name changed, or, they went by a different name or a nickname or something like that. So I'm just pointing out as, sort of this example that, yeah, you might be looking for Herbert Babbitt and you found the exact phrase matches, but then you find out like, okay, the timeline's not adding up. It has to be a different person. So, yeah. And then here's a brand book. So this one's going back to 1920, brand book of the state of Arizona. Arizona Department of Agriculture used to be the Arizona Livestock Sanitary Board, as an example. But here you can see that, searching for Herbert Babbitt, we have wound up with brands. And you can see this sort of confirms as well that, Flagstaff tends to be sort of, where the family was, or at least Herbert was living. And this lines up better with the other search results, the 1930 State Business Directory, 1920 brand book. It's more likely this is the same Herbert Babbitt. But yeah, and you can see if you haven't used these brand books before, you can see that, on the far left column that's highlighted, that's what the brand looks like. There's no way to search that. But, it starts with technically a B. It's categorized as a B, and the brand books are organized, numerically and then alphabetically. So you can see that this is page 13 of 272. So because the brand starts with a B, it's fairly close to the beginning. And some of these symbols are a little generous in what's, they don't all exactly look like, a B and A, whatever. But, whenever they're compiling these, like, yeah, close enough, that's a B, right? So that's just kind of a very quick, like, how to read a brand book, numerically and then alphabetically. Okay, my collection. So I mentioned before that you'll have the opportunity to create an account, and that will give you some extra tools. So it doesn't unlock content. You're not missing out on anything. No new content suddenly becomes available without an account. But if you do create an account, you can unlock a couple tools that will help you. Okay, so, and I've got instructions for creating a member account at the end, so that way it's fresh in your mind what you need to do. So if you create a member account, you can save any item, any hub page, any item, anything on the site to a new section that will open up called My Collection. So once you're logged in, you can, this will open up My Collection, otherwise it won't be there. So it's a member account page that lists every item that you add to it. I can show you some screenshots of what those look like. Okay, so we looked at that brand book and you're like, ah, awesome. I want to bookmark that. I don't want to have to remember it later. I don't have to like save a bunch of URLs to my browser, things like that. So log in, and on every single page that has an item, and this closed for hub items too. So if you wanted to bookmark the genealogy page, you could do that as well. So you can see every page is going to have this star in the tools panel, which is always located directly to the left of the item viewer. So click that star. That will bookmark the item for you, and then it will send it to that My Collections section of the site. And I'll show you some screenshots of what that looks like. Once things are in your My Collection, you can then organize those bookmarked items into sort of your own customized collections. So once you click on the My Collection tab, you can click Start a New Collection, and then you can name it whatever you want. So, for example, I've got some here: genealogy research, Babbitt Family History Project, Charlotte Hall research, Grand Canyon research. You can create as many as you want, and you can put whatever items that you bookmarked into whatever collection that you want to. So as a side note, this doesn't affect anything on the actual site, because I've used terms like, oh, we have 609 collections from other partners. This doesn't affect that. It's using the same language, but these collections that you're creating only exist for you when you're logged in. It doesn't affect anything else on the site. So just so you know, that's all contained into sort of your login credentials, your account. Okay, so when you click on an item, and you get a little pop-up notification saying successfully added to your collection. Great. It's going to show up like this in a list. It'll show, my private collection. So that sort of reinforces that it's your private collection. No one else can see this. It doesn't affect anything else on the site. But yeah, so it's going to show up here in a list in the order in which things were added. So if I added another item to it, it would go to the top, and then the other ones would just kind of bump down. And as you add more things, you might need to scroll. So if you want to add items that are listed here in your sort of main list, then you would click the ones that you want to add to a specific collection. You can click this to uncheck all of them. If you've got 50 things in there and they're all going to the same custom collection you want, you can check them all, or do them one-offs. So here I've got these 4. I'm like, okay, these are the search results that we just went over. We found a Herbert Babbitt in this yearbook, in the state business directory, this issue of the Coconino Sun, and this brand book. Great. Check them off. This is going to be a drop down of all your collections. So if this were a live demonstration, I could click this, and then it would show a drop down of Grand Canyon Research, Charlotte Hall, the other collections that I already made. So this is telling you where these items are going to be parked, which collection, and then just click Add Checked Items to Collection, and then this is a screenshot of that custom collection that I made just for this as a demonstration. So you can see that under my Babbitt Family History Project, these items are now all there. So when you're logged in, you can just come over on the screen. You'll see it on the right. All the individual items you added will be on the left side of the screen. Your custom collections will be on the right side of the screen. And then you can just click into the Babbitt Family History Project. And it's not clear from here, but these are all hyperlinked. So all you need to do is click on the item thumbnail, and it'll take you directly to that item. You don't have to search for it again. You don't have to remember what your search terms were. You don't need to write down URLs or anything like that. This saves it all for you. This is permanent. So, as long as you're logged in, this is available to you. You can share the collection. So if you're working with someone else, maybe there's a group of you and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to do Herbert Babbitt. Someone else has another Babbitt family member, right? You might, be a divide and conquer approach and sort of splitting it across, a group. So whenever you have a collection like this, you can share it out. So that way you can just easily, it'll give everyone else that you share it with just a link to your items. And then that way you can collaborate and, kind of share your work. You can rename the collection, so if it becomes something like Babbitt Family History Project, maybe this was originally called Herbert Babbitt, and they're like, oh, actually, this turned into a bigger project. We're going to start looking at, the rest of the family. So you can rename it if you need to. And then if you find something that you're like, okay, well, I thought this was important, but it turns out it's not. You can always delete it. So those little symbols are over here, so you can share it, you can rename the collection, and then you can just delete it as well. I mentioned these items are permanent. It's permanent as long as you want them in there. There's also an option here that doesn't show up unless I sort of, in the real site, I would need to hover over it to make it show up. But you can delete an entire collection as well. So it could be that, like, okay, we're done with the project. We don't need the links anymore. We have everything that we need. You can go ahead and just delete your custom collection. Again, it's private. You're not deleting anything from the site itself or anything like that. You're only deleting it from your the private collection that you made while you're logged into your account. So, because otherwise, if you're doing a lot of these projects, you'll get, you can get, 50 of these kind of all stacked up. So if once you're done with the project and you don't need this anymore, you can always delete it. But you can also keep it as long as you want. It doesn't there's no timer on it. You don't. It's not going to boot you out if you don't use it or anything like that. It's there as long as you want it there. All right, so creating a member account. So I'll reinforce a few things. All AMP users have the option. It's completely optional. The site still works without it. It's not required to use AMP. All AMP content is available to all users with or without an account. A member account does not unlock additional content. So what that member account really does is it gives you those extra tools so you can bookmark things and create your own custom collections. So it's a matter of sort of convenience and research efficiency, not putting content behind accounts. So your account information, it's an email and a username. Your account information is not used for any purpose other than you logging into your account, or you can also alternatively, it's a little more direct to be able to contact me if you have any questions, because when you're logged in, it will, there's a slightly more efficient way to get in touch with me if you have a question. But I'm not going to go over that here because you can also just email me, you don't need to be logged in to get in touch with me. So anyway, but yeah, so it's not used for any other purpose. It's for you to optimize your research, basically. Creating an account doesn't subscribe you to anything. It doesn't sign you up for emails. I'm not going to use it to try and, get you to use the site more or something like that, right? No one's going to bother you because your email is out there, having used it to create this account. So it's just for you. We don't use it for any reason. I don't even know your password. So it's totally for you. So I mentioned before, the account benefits, you can bookmark content, create personalized custom collections of that bookmark content. And there's another sort of benefit as well that you might get some mileage out of. You can also suggest metadata edits to specific items. So there's a little tool in there. I don't really have a whole lot of time to go over it right now. It's sort of, kind of like a side thing. But there'll be like a little pencil mark thing. So sometimes, we know that AMP is not perfect. There's, 280,000 plus items in it. And, the metadata, there's probably like 15 million points of metadata. We know there's some stuff that might be a little wrong. If you notice something in your research that's wrong, like say the yearbook says, this is the yearbook from 1930. And then you're looking at it, it's like, no, like this is clearly like 1940, like this is wrong. There's a way that you can suggest an edit to that item. And what that does is it sends me a notification that someone said, hey, someone's got a suggested metadata edit. And it tells me basically, hey, go check it out. So when you're suggesting it, it doesn't, make any actual saves. It doesn't actually make the change on the site. It needs to go through me and be reviewed. And then I sort of be like, oh yeah, they're totally right. This is 1940. The metadata says 1930. Let me fix that. So yeah, we want to make sure the metadata is correct because it impacts search results and how people find things. So we want to make sure it's as accurate as possible. So if you notice something is wrong, while you're logged in, you'll have that option to directly suggest a metadata edit. If you don't have an account, you can always just email me and say, hey, this is wrong. Include the link so I know that we're referencing the same thing, and then I can go in, check it, and then make any edits as necessary. Okay, so how to actually create one. It's very similar to creating any other online account that you've ever made. So from any page on site, it says click login on homepage. It'll actually be there on any page. You can tell that you're not logged in because it'll say welcome guest, and then it'll say the word login. So click on either the word guest or click login. And then under register now, just enter your name and an email address. It can be whatever you want it to be. The email address just needs to be a valid one. You can enter your name as whatever you like it to be. Here's where it's a little different from every other online account you've ever made. It doesn't automatically register you. It does need to be manually approved by AMP staff. So me, it's sort of like an anti-spam, kind of prevention thing. Want to make sure that, some bots aren't in there creating a million fake accounts, that kind of stuff. So once you click register, it sends me a notification that says, hey, someone is interested in an account. And then I go in, sometimes I will get emails that are like, okay, this is like clearly from a business account that wants to sell us something, as long as you're not that, right? And if you just put in, just like your name and an email address, and it's like, okay, yeah, sure. Looks fine to me. Then I go in and approve it. Usually the same business day, right? So, if you, we have regular office hours, holidays, so if you, create an account on, Saturday morning, it's not going to be probably till Monday morning when that gets approved. So, if time is of the essence and you need your account right away, kind of thing, just do it on a business day. And, I'm at my desk, pretty much all day, every day, while I'm working. So I get a notification, I see it, very fast turnaround. So what you need to do is once I do that part, check your email that you used, the same email that you used for creating an account. Check that for a temporary password. Again, I don't create your password for you. I don't know what it is. We set it up so that the system gives you a completely random, invisible to me temporary password. You use that to log in for the first time, and then once you get into the login for the first time, using those credentials, you can go to the new My Profile link. This is in that same navigation panel with the search. Click on My Profile, and then it gives you basically just your profile account information. So if you want to change your password, or if you notice there was a typo in your name accidentally or something like that, if you change email addresses, or if you get a new one, you're like, oh, okay, I have a genealogy research specific email address that I like to use, and I want to change it to that. You can do that. And I'm mentioning this here. Mileage may vary, but my contributions is if you suggested a metadata edit, it will sort of keep track of that for you. So like, oh right, so it's kind of a reminder, like, oh yeah, I wanted to go check back on that. So it kind of lists those out for you so that your activity basically. And I should say that activity isn't visible to me. If you make a contribution, I'll know that you suggested a metadata edit, but it's your profile's not being used to sort of like it's not sending me reports or anything about like, oh, this user was searching for this, and so like that's not being monitored. I don't know what you're doing while you're in your account, sort of thing. So it's not being used to like track what you're doing. It's just there, basic stuff to, your login credentials and things like that. Okay, this was mentioned in the chat, but I wanted to call it out here. If you're interested in learning more, a little bit more about sort of like the Arizona Memory Project, 2026 is the 20th anniversary of the Memory Project. So I mentioned before it launched in 2006. So it's our 20th year. So we wanted to celebrate that. So on Wednesday, March 25th, so next week, from 11 to 12 Mountain Standard Time. Someone else may have mentioned at the beginning of this that, of course, Arizona does not follow daylight saving, so Mountain Standard Time. It's going to be set up similar to this free virtual event. This one's going to be focused specifically on the history of AMP. It's going to include presentations by me, state librarian and director, the state archivist and archives administrator, the senior museum administrator for the Arizona Capitol Museum. And we have a pre-recorded video message from Arizona Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes. So you can, if you go to the event page where you registered for this, it'll be on that main event page, but here's also a direct URL. So if you have that other registration link handy, you can just add AMP20 to the end of it. But if you go to the main sort of page for registering for State of Arizona Research Library events, it will be listed there. So I did want to point that out. So if you're interested in learning more about sort of AMP specifically, or more broadly, I should say, AMP more broadly, not just the genealogy focus, then yeah, that was a event that we're going to be putting on. And I'll leave this up for a bit. I think I see some questions in chat. But yeah, so that's how you can contact me. There's 2 email addresses there. My main sort of the direct one is the one that's hyperlinked. And then the easy memory is more of a generic one. They both come directly to me. So, you can use one or both. the AZ memory one, yeah, I was gonna say that can be that one is good if you see like an out of an out of office reply or something like that. We've set it up so that more than just me can see the Arizona Memory Project account. So anyway, if you have a broader, so those ones are really good if you have an AMP specific question, because I manage that resource. If you have a broader question about like, kind of like, oh, well, what else does the library have? That's better off for the ask a research question on LibAnswers, because that goes to a reference librarian, and then that can get sort of, it's the most efficient way to get to the person who can answer your question the best. If it's AMP, that's me. If it's sometimes things are like, oh, it's AMP, but also, hey, we've got these other collections that have other things that you might want to look at. So AMP might be like a part of a bigger question. So anyway, if you think that something might be, and again, I'll be notified on anything that looks like AMP. So if you ask a research question and say, oh, hey, I'm looking for these kinds of resources, I might jump in and say, okay, well, here's what AMP has, and then all those other resources that we have available at the library and archives, those we can throw in as well. So. Okay, I'm going to leave this up while I answer questions. So if you need to jot down, contact information. So
thank you for the wonderful
Ryan,
presentation.
are you going to read out the questions?
Yeah, I'm going to read them out. Okay. Yeah, yes. So our first question is from Rebecca. She wants to know, can items or family journals / letters be donated to the Arizona Memory Project? My family has been in Arizona since it was a territory, and I have things that should be preserved after I go.
Okay. That's okay. I have a two-part answer. If you're interested in donating the physical items and you want to make sure that those physical things are preserved, I don't make decisions on sort of like physical collections management. You can let, that would be a good LibAnswers question here to ask you, hey, I want to donate these things for the physical side. I don't make those decisions. But I do make the decisions on whether digital stuff, scanned things are available for the memory project. So generally, yes, if it's relevant to Arizona history, which this sounds exactly like it is, then yeah, we do have a process for contributing stuff. It's a little more flexible, less paperworky if it's an individual versus like a formal institution. We do have a process like an application that you just fill out, which basically says, here's the items I have. Here's how many I have, the date range on them, and mostly that date range thing is kind of to tell us like, hey, is it likely that this stuff is copyrighted? Things like that. It lets us know, like, do you have anything scanned? Do you need to get it scanned? Things like that. There's just a lot of logistical pieces that need to sort of happen to get something up on the memory project, especially if it's not scanned already. And particularly with older stuff, we kind of want to know like what the physical condition is. Like, hey, can we, how fragile is this stuff? Because if we scan it, we're handling it. We want to make sure that, no damage is done during that process. So yeah, that's the, if you want to start that conversation, I think because it involves other staff who make decisions about the physical stuff, I would do LibAnswers. If you are only interested in the digital side of it and you're like, no, like we just want them scanned and put up, we want to keep the physical stuff. We want to sort of like keep it in the family as long as possible. Then you could probably just email me directly, and then we can sort of work out the details. Because I know a lot of people just sort of don't have access to high quality scanners, or they may not be familiar with like sort of like we have very specific metadata templates. So like when was it made, who made it, things that kind of help people find, contextualize what the items are. But yeah, so broadly, yes, you can. And I will note too that anything that's offered to the memory project, whatever copyright or intellectual property that you own for it, is not transferred to us. You keep all of your intellectual property for the items. All we're doing is providing an online space to make a digital copy of those original resources accessible online. So we do have some things about if we have a patron asking, they're writing a book and they found your item and they want to use it, they're going to ask permission for how to use it. We do want you to leave, some notice about like, okay, like what do you consider permissible use? You can, make it something that, like, oh, anybody can use it for whatever they want, however they want, no questions asked. Okay, cool. Let us know. And then we can put that in the metadata so that we know and the researchers know that, they don't need any special permissions. If you want to be notified and you want, to basically, provide permission and say like, yeah, we don't have any real restrictions. We just want to know, like, we want to sort of like, affirmatively grant permission for someone to use it that way. So it's very flexible. You get to keep, whatever intellectual property and reuse policies that you want on it. So by giving it to the memory project, you're not sort of like surrendering that to us and the policies that we have for the use of content. So yeah, good question.
Our next question is, does the brand book include brands on Arizona tribal reservations?
Ooh, I have not seen those specifically. I haven't really done a huge deep dive into individual brand books. It's possible that they do include them. I just haven't done the personal research to say for sure that because the format that I'm familiar with is and it's statewide. I haven't seen a brand book that's specifically for tribal reservations, and I haven't recalled seeing tribal reservation sections within the brand book. So I don't know for sure. It may be included in there. And I think some of the brand books will include information about, where something is located. Sometimes, though, you have to it might just list the name of the ranch instead of a person because it's, sort of like an LLC, kind of thing. And then you could use that information to like, okay, well, that's the name of the ranch, and then go look up where the ranch is, and it may be located on the tribal land. But yeah, I don't recall any sort of special call outs or subsections within a brand book that you can tell like, okay, this is just the tribal brands.
Okay. Our next question is from Camille. They said, is there any size limitation on how much material / information that can be saved in my collection?
I don't think there's any practical limit. I think it's just going to keep letting you add stuff until you're going to be scrolling for a very long time. We have not reached a practical limit, so it's not like only your top 10 or something. I think for demonstration purposes, I've probably got like 50 plus in there. So I think all it's going to do is just going to keep scrolling. So it gets a little cumbersome if you've got a lot of things, especially in that list, because then if you're going to try and go look for stuff to add to a collection, it's just going to be a very long list. But no, we have not reached a practical limit for how many items you can add to your collection. As far as the system's concerned, like you want it, it'll just put it in there.
And then our next question is from Brenda. They want to know for the March 25th event, they can't attend due to work. If they register, can they view the recording of the event afterwards?
You should be able to, yes. I think that will go. Yeah, I think what'll happen. Yeah, I need to finalize this, but I think what's going to happen is it'll be recorded and then it'll be put on the Memory Project website. So that link will be sent out to everyone who registered, so that way you can follow up and say, oh, okay, there it goes. So yeah, I think the idea is it's going to be on the Arizona Memory Project website. It might also be added on our the State of Arizona Research Library's YouTube channel as well. So yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. So yes.
And I think that concludes our Q&A. We're at 11:15 now.
Hey, we did it. Awesome.
Yes.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
Yes, so I think we're going to be starting up the downtime slides and then opening up chat for attendees again. And it'll start up again at 11:30 a.m. So 15 minutes.
Right. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.